now to the U.S. state of Florida, where rescue workers are still holding out hope that they'll find survivors of the collapse of a beachside high-rise building. Last week's incident has left more than a dozen people dead and more than 100 are still missing. State and federal authorities are investigating what caused the building to crumble and inspecting other buildings in the area. Paolo Monticello reports.
The warning signs were there to see. Large puddles forming near the swimming pool, weakening the concrete below. In the underground parking lot, cracked columns and support beams. Poorly repaired or ignored altogether, the condo's underlying weaknesses finally caused it to fail in one of the deadliest building collapses in U.S. history.
Buildings in the United States do not fall down. This is not a third world country where that phenomenon is common. It's a first world country, and something very, very wrong was going on at that building.
Structural problems at Chaplin Tower South were identified in an engineer's report in 2018. The Condominium Association's president this year told fellow residents the state of the building had deteriorated significantly, and homeowners would have to pay $15 million to fix it. They were searching for contractors when the building came tumbling down.
We continue to search the grid layer by layer, removing debris as we continue to move forward in our search and rescue efforts. As we mentioned before, this is a very tedious effort.
As rescue workers search for survivors, Florida officials are looking into the exact cause of the collapse. The inquiry is expected to take months, but early assessments suggest a rising water table could have contributed. Miami-Dade County had earmarked nearly $4 billion to protect coastal communities from rising seas. But some experts say Chaplin Tower South may have been doomed from the start.
When you build a high-rise building, you're supposed to excavate, put in footers to spread the weight, the stress. Was that done or not? And the legislation that finally made that necessary along the coast only passed in 1982. This building was built in 1981.
Local officials have ordered an audit of buildings more than 5 stories tall and more than 40 years old. They want to make sure the neighborhood's other homes are safe and that no more fall victim to years of neglect. Paolo Monticello, TRT World.
For more on this, Kit Miyamoto joins me live from Davis, California. He's CEO of Miyamoto International, a global structural and engineering disaster management firm. Welcome to the show, Kit. Now, you guys are experts at assessing these kind of risks and fixing them. We know investigations are still ongoing, but what seem to be the contributing factors to this disaster so far?
Well, one of the biggest things came for last week is essentially the neglect or deterioration of concrete and the reinforcement under the essentially the pool deck you just saw in the picture, and the columns. Those are very, very important structural elements. And that's definitely one of the factors. There are many different possible contribution to this, but that's something that they need to look into that.
Now, do you think there may be some possible civil or criminal liability coming out of this case, considering especially the fact that there were red flags raised months or if not years before this tragedy happened?
Well, I mean, it's this governance of the condo building, like this apartment building like this, is governed by the homeowner association, condo association, and they basically compose of the owners of these apartments, right? And I don't know exactly the dynamics of this particular HOA, the homeowners association, but sometimes they face a difficulty. For example, I was in Puerto Rico right after the earthquake in 2020. And many apartment buildings of like this got damaged. And discussion is how much they should repair, how much they should strengthen it. You know, many of governance policy of HOAs are quite clear about how to make a decision making of it. So sometimes decision takes some time to kind of get to. So things like that, it's very difficult. And I have no idea exactly how actually this particular homeowner association dealt with it. But I can see that you can also see difficulty, right? essentially repair bill was somewhere between $10 million to $15 million. That's a lot of money, even a couple hundred apartments in there. So some people has access to money, some people may have access to the borrowing capacity, but some are not. So it's very difficult to get some consensus going. So this is true for every single apartment buildings, condo, what we call in the U.S. That's their face. But again, I think maintenance is key. Miami-Dade County has a 40-year recertification program, which means you inspect and repair as needed. Obviously, that length probably need to be shortened. If you inspect, if you repair every 5 years, it's not going to end up to $10 million repair. So it's definitely not only it will save the money, but also save the lives also. So that kind of things are really critical. But again,
these rising sea levels are not just a local problem, right? Many coastal cities are facing these issues, and coastal cities tend to be the ones that have large concentrated populations. Do you think it's coming to a point where governments everywhere really need to sort of rethink urban development, especially in coastal areas?
I think so. I mean, I was in Venice, Italy last year actually, and you can see the flood. It's getting more and more, and you can see that used to be first floor now become underwater, under sea. So it's definitely the rising tide it's a huge issue. So it's definitely have to I think need to be really understand that climate change and challenges in the next 5, 10, 20 years and 30 years, and engineering has to be basically adapted to that. And it's possible. I mean, there's different technology to be able to deal with that.
And very quickly, if people are living in such areas or they suspect similar sort of weaknesses in their structures, what are they going to be looking out for?
Well, as you know, there's a twin tower to this, the south and north one. And one is collapse, one has a really good maintenance in there. And engineers, qualified engineers, basically visually inspected, they passed the flying color because they didn't see any distress, any damage, any rust, none of it, So having engineers to actually walk through the building to inspect it, that's definitely a critical one. And that would be something that would really important.
All right, Kit Miyamoto there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights.